All right, we're good to go. Whenever you're ready, Rizzo.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Moonshiners Racing presented by Depot Street Sports. This time we're live. Doing it live. We're all here on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok of Depot Street. Make sure you're following. If you're watching, you're definitely following. But yeah, we're back. We're going to talk all things Las Vegas, get us prepared for that, and last week at Phoenix. But first, let's introduce who we all have. As always, we have Zachary Kendall, Aiden Fortney, and Michael Adams joining us for this episode. Special episode is Christian Wilson, photographer, does stuff with Dirt Vision and Amazon. Guys, how are we all doing? And welcome to the show, Christian.
Thanks for having me.
As for the rest of us that are less cool than Christian, I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, I'm doing really well this week, of course. My favorite driver, my all-time second favorite driver, unfortunately, he'll never pass Tony Stewart, but Ryan Blaney got the win. I'm happy. I am less sick than last week, so that is cool too.
I'm ready to get rocking and rolling. Another NASCAR weekend went by. Maybe not the most memorable race for some, maybe, but I'm excited to get to talk with Christian today, along with talking about NASCAR in general with you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. Glad to have you on. Glad everybody's here. Excited that we are live for the first Moonshiners Racing episode that's live. Big things coming. We just got done airing Excessive BS earlier with French and Raymond. So, yeah, really big news. Got some big news coming at the end of the show, so stay tuned.
Yeah, looking forward to getting this show rolling here. Yeah, I'm doing good as well. I'm live from Las Vegas. I'm 10 minutes down the street of where the race is going to be at, working the NASCAR Youth Series event off of Turn 2. So if you're watching this from Las Vegas, go ahead and check us out. We're off of Turn 2 outside the racetrack. But let's get going. Christian Wilson, thank you for joining us out of your busy schedule. We're going to go into an interview here and talk some questions with you and possibly get some stories out of you. First question is, why racing photography? What brought you into racing and then photography as a racing photography?
Well, believe it or not, I went to broadcasting school. I went to a school called Carolina Broadcasting School in Charlotte, and I didn't study photography at all there. So it's completely different than what I went to school for. I've always wanted to get into broadcasting in some sort of avenue anyway. Always loved NASCAR, started watching in 2004. So I went to school there, basically was studying camera operating, but other than that, I was doing a lot of editing stuff, some radio work as well. I used to work at the Garner Webb radio station, so had a lot of experience with soundboards and stuff like that. But after a while, like after I graduated, I done hockey and soccer as like internships, and I wanted to get involved in motorsports somehow. And turns out Rockingham was just starting back to having more again. So this was in 2021, and I knew someone on Facebook named Joe who was like, you could come out and see the Stock Car Classics event at Rockingham. I'm like, oh, this looks fun. They're racing old cars, like old race cars at the track again. So I got this old camera that my parents hadn't used in a long time, just start shooting. And then after a while, like I was like, I want to do this more, but at other tracks. So from there, started doing some more racetracks. And I ran into someone named Tom Baker, who I work for now at Steering Wheel Nation. He was really interested in my work, and he was like, why not shoot for us? And I was like, this is gonna be great. And I started doing NASCAR photography. And other than that, I work as a graphics operator at Dirt. So with that, I started that in 2021 also, and that was like right out of college. But basically with that, I put up the commercials and graphics during the Dirt Vision broadcast. So anything you see on the screen, like the news ticker, the my wife's in the background. Say hi. But yeah, so with the graphics operating, basically I put up lower thirds, the commercials, the leaderboard, all that during the Dirt Vision broadcast. I don't do every one of them, but I do whichever one I'm assigned to. It's pretty fun, but you gotta be careful of what you're doing. Make sure you're paying attention at all times because a lot of people could see it.
So, what's probably your favorite track to go to and work at?
Well, my favorite ones to shoot at is kind of biased with Rockingham because that's where I got my start. But I really love shooting at Darlington because the staff there is really nice to me, and they let us go pretty much anywhere. And then other than that, I know it's going to sound a little strange, but Pocono is one of my favorites. It's just the scenery. There's it's a lot of walking, but you could go to a lot of different spots to shoot. So those, and then Charlotte, because that's my hometown track. I live in Concord, so Charlotte's right down the road from here. My favorite track, not to shoot, but to go to, personally, is Atlanta, or as it's now called Echo Park. That is an amazing track. In my opinion, the best track on the schedule right now.
Yeah, Atlanta being the best track on the schedule is not. In my book, it's not really a hot take right now. I mean, the racing product there shows for itself. Real quick, I want to go back to 2004. You said that's when you became a NASCAR fan. What exactly got you hooked into racing? Was it a driver? Was it the cars? Was it someone in your family? Maybe tell us more about that.
Gotcha. Well, basically, my grandfather, my mom's father, was big in the cars, and he used to take me to car shows when I was a kid. I'd say he's the one that got me into it. It wasn't a driver. I remember one of my first memories of racing was the Cars movie. That was a big life changer for me. My favorite driver growing up was Gordon. Jeff Gordon's amazing. I actually got to interview him last year, and it was just amazing that I finally got to meet my childhood hero. But basically, other than the car shows, like we went to Bowman Gray, which is right in Winston-Salem, and that was the track I went to a lot growing up. And I would say those were the reasons why I became a race fan. I forgot to mention another thing too. So with Steering Wheel Nation, I have started doing some more article work with them, like journalism. But other than photography, I do a lot of driver interviews, and I like to interview fans because not a lot of people do that, and I like to get their perspectives on the track and how long they've been going to these things, so their best and worst experiences. It's just a fun thing to do.
Speaking of fans and such like that and other drivers, do you have any stories about, interviewing drivers or fans at all?
Stories interviewing. Well, I've had some positive, obviously, as someone that works in the interviewing business and media industry. There's always going to be some positive and negative things that happen. And I would say probably the Jeff Gordon one, as I mentioned, my favorite interaction. I mean, Chastain's always really nice to me. He always greets me every time I see him. And that's her favorite driver as well. Chris Buescher's always been really cool with me. I like Chris. Tyler Reddick, I got to interview him test at Wilkesboro this year. He was really cool. There's been a few times though where I've had some bad interaction. I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them, but I will say I've seen some crazy stuff with fans. I wouldn't say interview wise, even though they've told me some crazy stories. I will tell you that I'll tell you about two of the weirdest things I've seen at a racetrack. One was at Wilkesboro for the All-Star race in 2023 when they first went back. So I parked in one of the grass parking lots about like half a mile from the track. So after the race, I went back to the car, and guess what I see? I see a drunk fan peeing on my car. Literally, he had no shame whatsoever. He just literally just exposed himself and started peeing on my car. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like, I was just like distraught. I obviously wanted to get physical and attack, but at the same time, it would have been a good idea. And the craziest part about this is there was a porta potty 50 yards away. So it's not like they didn't have the option to use one. But anyways, yeah, that's probably the craziest fan experience I've noticed. Another thing that's kind of crazy is like when I went to Echo Park a few weeks ago, they had a sea lion show, and that caught me off guard considering like you rarely see that at a racetrack. I'm like, it was entertaining. Don't get me wrong, I liked it, but it was just like of all things, I've seen fans fall down bleachers before because they didn't drink enough water and they got dehydrated, just fall. Seen fans fighting over autographs before. There's one woman at Pocono. This was a good one. So, one time at Pocono, she basically was mad that SCG didn't sign her hat or whatever, and still mad about it because this is well after it happened. I was in Victory Lane, and she kept screaming, and it was there to I don't know if you've ever been to Pocono, any of y'all, but there's a Victory Lane right near the paddock pass where you get paddock pass. You could basically go pretty much anywhere on pit road. And then there's a tunnel that goes under the track that goes to the grandstand. So there's a lot of fans like pushing and shoving towards Victory Lane, and this woman kept like complaining to me. She was like on and on, and some guy was, shut up, and then she just started going crazy. I'm like, oh. And security wasn't doing their job. It was just a mess. Another example of security not doing their job sometimes, at Charlotte last year for the 600, Chastain on the Victory Lane, some fan was on pit road and stole his hat and ran off. And I couldn't just straight up chase him because I had camera equipment in my hands, and I was thinking about it, but for some reason I just didn't do it. But the guy took off running. It was maybe another 100 feet before someone finally got him. I'm like, what are y'all doing? But anyways, those are some crazy experiences I've had at the racetrack.
The weird part is if I heard a story about someone pissing on a car today, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice today. All right. So I've already heard a separate incident today, and you're just the second one. Yeah, so you were talking about camera equipment and stuff like that. I am a freelance videographer. I take pictures and videos
cool.
myself. I have a Sony A7 III, and I was really just wondering what's your equipment look like? What do you have exactly?
I will show you one of the cameras, but I don't have it on me over here right now. But I mainly use the Nikon D7500. I actually just got some new microphones because my sound quality has been pretty terrible lately. So I just got some new microphones, but I started out using a Canon, like a really old Canon, and then just went from there. I love doing it. I do it mostly for fun. There is some people that take it very seriously though, and they just don't like it doesn't look like they're having fun. So I'd say advice is like do what I'm thinking of the best way to word this. Do it fun in a way, but also like have fun while doing it. Don't let people stress you out and let and put it down. Either just keep working hard and you'll find a way. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, one thing I was called to do is to share my faith in motorsports. I'm a Christian, and there's a lot of people in the media industry and in motorsports in general that are full of greed and just selfishness. And I'd say the world, obviously we all know what's going on, but everyone needs Jesus, and I'm doing the best I can to share that, share Jesus and share the word of God in people in the motorsports industry. And it's tough. There's times where I've obviously failed at doing that, but that's my calling, was to do that.
So question I have for you, how many races do you get in a year? And are you looking to maybe potentially get in more if you don't have enough already to fit your schedule?
Well, I am a very busy guy. As one of y'all mentioned earlier, I work Amazon also. But Dirt Vision usually do about 50 broadcasts a season, which sounds like a lot, but do multiple in a week. It doesn't feel like a lot until you're getting to the end of the season. NASCAR usually, I'm just going to sound crazy, 6 to 7 races a year. Sometimes 8. It depends on what I'm assigned to, obviously, and with traveling, some of them I do have to travel for and stay overnight and stuff like that. But there's a few like Darlington and Charlotte that are just day trips, North Wilkesboro, Rockingham day trips. I have always wanted to work full time in motorsports. Just I haven't had that opportunity yet, and if that's not and if that doesn't happen, then that's God's will. But I am very busy. I just got married in November, so there's a lot of things going on in our life, and I think that what I'm doing now is best for both me and my wife.
Have you ever looked into doing anything with flow racing? I know they're big in the world of things, so is that like a competitive?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. So the guy that hired me originally for Dirt Vision, he interviewed me, hired me on. He now works at Flow. So I've always been friends with a few of the guys that work at Flow, including Matthew Dillner, Rob Lounce, the guy I was mentioning that hired me at Dirt Vision and is now working at Flow. There's always a lot of people that talk about the rivalry. It's a big deal in dirt because they're the two biggest dirt racing companies with broadcasting. So I don't know if that's the best way I should word it, but Flow does a lot of great things, and Dirt Vision does a lot of great things. Flow, I look at it from a perspective of they're both helping the sport. They're both doing the best they can to broadcast motorsports. Flow does more paved racing, obviously, than Dirt Vision, because Dirt Vision mostly dirt. But even though that's the case, we do have 500 Sprint Car Tour, which is paved. But I obviously there's a big rivalry deal there for a while, especially with people on Twitter and Facebook. And then when High Limit came along, that was a big deal because there was more competitive. There was a really competitive series that had just started that was rivaling or getting up to the level as the World of Outlaws, and a lot of people say that High Limit is now exceeded the World of Outlaws. I disagree, but they both are big for motorsports and big for the United States, and yes, there is a little bit of a rivalry in a way, but I see it as we're all just doing our jobs, doing the best we can. You know, with some ideas with Dirt Vision, I feel like both of them have gotten ideas from each other. Like there's times where I've noticed like Flo's used some of the ideas that we've had and used it for themselves, or found ways to exceed that or whatever. And then I feel like we've done some stuff that we were like, oh, well, that looked a little similar to them. But you know, I try not to look at that too much in the comments, because then it's like, well, now I'm kind of because I work for one and I don't work for the other one. So it's like I don't want to get involved with all that and be like, oh, this one's better and all that, and then just cause conflict. I'm not going to try to do that. Plus, I'm not going to try to risk my job either. I love working at Dirt Vision, and I'm not going to blast Flow Racing or whatever. I'm just not going to do it because they've done a great job as well. I would say we've done a really good job over a few years recently with our graphics. Done a lot of really cool stuff and continuing to get better. Shout out to the guys that have worked on those things, and I think Flow Racing, I think we all have ways we can improve Flow and Dirt Vision. A lot of that obviously could be mainly like buffering, because that's something a lot of people have complained about, is buffering or the signal going out or whatever. It happens. But the best way I think I could describe or answer that question. It is a very difficult question, but that's the best way I could describe it. I'm glad you asked that.
A little bit ago, you said, you know, you'd love to race full hours. You work time in motorsports, and for me, someone who's worked, you know, part time and freelance in motorsports and a small portion of it, I definitely agree. I wish I could do the same, but you also talked about in that same section how you've done 50 dirt races a year. Out of all the dirt tracks you go to, what are some of your favorites? What are some of the best ones that put on great shows? I know I've gotten into dirt racing. I'm sure there are some of our listeners are as well.
Well, with Dirt Vision, I don't go a lot to the track. I'm mainly I work in the studio, so I stay local. But there's a few times I do go out to certain tracks on the road. Cherokee Speedway is my hometown track in Gaffney. That's where I grew. I lived there for about 16 years. Cherokee Speedways will always be my favorite because it's my hometown track, but there's obviously things that can be criticized about it, including the late starts and how long some of those races go. Sometimes they end up to like 1 a.m. But anyways, I would say other than that, like Millbridge is another really good one. In Salisbury, North Carolina, it's about 30 minutes from me. Millbridge does a great job with a lot of younger racers trying to get their foot in the door, but also like get more experience. They have a lot of kids classes. They also have a lot of micro and midget racing, which is cool. They also have this buggies division where adults like racing these carts that are like super low. They're like leaned all the way back like this. So Millbridge is another favorite. A few of my favorites that I have never been to, who I've worked broadcast for, is Knoxville Raceway, the home of the Knoxville Nationals, and then Williams Grove. That one's a very historic track up in Pennsylvania. It's really long and really fast, but it's a really good one, and I would love to go to those two one day. Don't know when, but I'm sure I could negotiate, and I'm sure I'll get the opportunity at some point to go to one of those two.
Well, thanks for answering some of our questions here. We're glad to have you. We're going to move on to our regular scheduled program, if you will, go on and talk racing about NASCAR last weekend at Phoenix. If you're welcome to stay on, if you want to pitch in here and there, that's all good. We'd love to hear what you got to think about NASCAR. So going in, let's talk about the Cup race at Phoenix. Ryan Blaney gets the win. Aiden, I'm sure you're excited. He's a big Ryan Blaney fan. If you do not know this guy is the biggest Ryan Blaney fan I've ever heard. I've ever seen. He wins the race on a late race strategy, able to hold off Christopher Bell. Guys, thoughts on the strategy? Thoughts on Ryan Blaney getting the win?
All right, the best Ford driver in NASCAR does it again. It was really an incredible drive. I mean, he dominated the first stage, won stage one. Stage two had the loose wheel issue, had to start in the back, drove up through the field, had a loose wheel again, and then had to drive through from the back once again. So just an incredible drive, not to mention the call right at the end. Unfortunately, they get Joe Gibbs Racing on the same strategy that Denny Hamlin lost the championship on. In the championship, Denny Hamlin took 4 tires, where Kyle Larson took 2. Well, guess what? Christopher Bell took 4, while Ryan Blaney ended up taking 2. Blaney on the restart just had to take the lead from Ty Gibbs, that bozo. So it was fried chicken from there. Once he got the lead, he just needed to hold off Christopher Bell just a little bit longer, and he was able to do that because, like I said, he is the best Ford driver in the Cup Series right now. Also, arguably right now a top 3, at least top 5 driver in the Cup Series right now too. Now we haven't gotten to that point yet. Our picks. No one picked Blaney, and Blaney's stats at Phoenix have been unbelievable looking back on them. Like, even as a Blaney fan, I knew he was good at Phoenix. I didn't realize how good he has been at Phoenix. Obviously, he got the win. He got the win last year. He blew a motor in the spring race, finished 28th, and then like before that, he has like 3 second place finishes, like 2 fourth place finishes, and then like another like 3rd place finish somewhere in there. And yeah, he's just been unbelievable at Phoenix, and definitely showed it last week.
Yeah, he definitely did. If you've been watching Fox, Larry Mack has his trends. Well, the trends say that Ryan Blaney has the best car in the long run, no matter where it's at. The last 3 years, especially, and last Sunday was no different. He had to overcome not 1 but 2 pit road issues, and you saw Kyle Larson have to have the same deal, go to the back. He couldn't drive through the field. You had, other guys, having the same issues, and they couldn't drive through the field, but Blaney could. And I always thought that it was him and Bell. Like, if you look at average finish around Phoenix, those 2 are the guys that you look at to really dominate, especially like Bell in the spring. He won the previous 2 Phoenix races. What's kind of crazy is that it's all like the last 5 races is like it's like almost like a sandwich. So Ryan Blaney won the last Phoenix race on the last lap pass against Keselowski. This first 3 races were won by Tyler Reddick, and now the guy that breaks that streak is Ryan Blaney at Phoenix again. So, there is no, without question, he is a top 3 driver in NASCAR because obviously you got to at least put like one of each manufacturer, honestly, probably up there. So for me, it's Larson and it's Blaney. And then it's probably a battle between Bell or Hamlin for the top Toyota team. I personally would pick Bell because he is younger than Hamlin. At this point, he can obviously carry Toyota in the future. But talking about Blaney, like, what else can you say about him? I mean, the Fords across the board haven't been as sharp as him, and it's without a question. We were discussing about who is the second best Ford driver. There is like a debate whether it's Logano some week, whether it's Chris Buescher or RFK some other weeks. But Blaney is the top dog at Ford, and he's just not going to give it up, especially with performances like that.
Yeah, I thought this was probably one of the best Phoenix races we had seen in a while with the tire fall off and everything. Blaney, he's kind of owning this track right now. I was shocked last week when nobody picked him. I went with Larson there. Zachary, you was saying it, between him and Bell, Blaney and Bell there, they've been dominating here lately. Hamlin picked up a win there last year, so you've kind of had that JGR Penske dominance for a while here at Phoenix. But overall, I thought this was a pretty solid race. One of the things that I thought was kind of weird, and they had mentioned it, I think Brad Keselowski had mentioned it on the download this week, but you would have a tire go down, and then you had multiple guys that would have a tire go down during caution. So I thought that was kind of unique, but I'm really liking what they are doing with this softer tire and stuff. I think we're moving in the right direction, and I'm very happy that this was actually a good Phoenix race.
Yeah, for sure. I did enjoy it, just like y'all. I would say that's definitely one of the best ones we've seen in, I don't know, 10 years. Phoenix, a lot, as people that know me, that know me for a while, know that I'm not a huge Phoenix fan. I used to like it more back in the 2000s, early 2000s and early 2010s up until about 2013. But regardless, they tied the track record for most cautions. Unfortunately, Chastain got wrecked, and there's a bunch of wild wrecks on Sunday. But Bell had won the last 2 spring races there in Phoenix. I thought for sure that he was going to go 3 in a row. I feel like if he had 5 more laps, he would have passed Blaney. In my honest opinion, he was coming quickly with the fresh tires. He took 4. It was just like lapping in the fall. The leading JGR car took 4 tires, got pushed farther and back, and then couldn't catch up. And when they tried to catch up, it was too late. That with what happened with Denny in the fall, and it happened this time with Bell. But I'm not trying to discredit Blaney by any means. Blaney had a great race himself. Blaney had a great race. I mean, he led laps too. It was clearly between Bell and Blaney. Those 2 were the fastest out of everybody. I was shocked to see Ty Gibbs up there because he had struggled the last few Phoenix races. I know one of them he had wrecked in the dog leg. So if I were to give that race like a 1 to 10 rating, I'd give it like a 7.
Yeah, I agree on that rating. It was definitely a 7 out of 10. Like last week, talking about getting into Phoenix, I said I'm going to have my expectations extremely low so Phoenix can at least meet them. And they exceeded my expectations. And Christian, you also brought up a good point how this race hasn't produced a good race in 10 years. It has probably been its entire track existence, in my opinion. And I think the addition of the additional horsepower, the really wear tire, like the softer tire, added a lot of excitement. It added to the overall excitement and strategy of watching this race. Like, do you want to save tires? Do you want to pit here? I mean, you obviously want the tires, but you're also running low on tires. And that led to aggressive driving, which led to all those wild accidents that you brought up. Let's talk about some of those wild accidents. You obviously had Chase Briscoe, who I picked last week. I thought he was going to run very well. He was running top 5 when he wrecked. He was actually running 3rd. Finished dead last. blown tire. There was plenty of blown tires. Kyle Busch blew a tire 2 times, I think. SVG spun out twice. And then obviously you had all of Penske kind of imploding on 2 separate accidents, and Ryan Blaney obviously did not get involved in that. But talk about all the wrecks and all those issues that happened to some drivers, guys. Thoughts on all that? Did it lead to all this other, the additional horsepower and the tire wear? Was that kind of the reason to it?
It's hard to say that those 2 things didn't have a factor. Obviously, there were some incidences in the race that kind of just happened and just happened to happen, if that makes sense. Like we saw Joey Logano get into it with Alfredo, take out Cindric. That wasn't really led by a tire issue, but a lot of those spins and wrecks were caused by tires and horsepower, which definitely did play a factor into it. I was kind of watching off and on the race. I actually went and filmed a 7-on-7 camp with a high school team in the Colts practice facility. So I was checking in on the race every now and then. I actually didn't know Blaney's pit crew failed him the first time around. I just looked and was like, why is he 20th after winning the stage? I did watch the other one live, so I did know about that. I do also want to specify that it is Roger Penske's probably thrilled that Blaney won that race, because it was a horrible day for Penske. Otherwise, obviously, Cindric got taken out in that huge wreck with Alfredo. Then later on in the race, Logano did actually get taken out. Logano kind of caused the first wreck that took out Cindric, and then Logano got in another wreck that took him out, and Josh Berry, which is basically the 4th Penske car that at this point. So all or nothing at that point after Cindric and not Cindric, after Logano and Berry got taken out. So Roger Penske's thrilled. Probably not about the torn up race cars, but that the day was a complete loss for him.
Well, real quick before I discuss, the tires and the wrecks. Blaney's pit crew was costing him every stop. He was losing his positions every stop, so it wasn't just the first time. But that's also obviously more impressive about how he was able to drive through the field. But I'm glad that we are discussing the tires, because I actually thought the tires actually made this race like watchable, because usually most Phoenix races aren't watchable. As for some of those accidents, I mean, it's prone Phoenix, because Phoenix is still a lot about track condition, and how you can get that is obviously, if you're not on pit road, it's on the restarts. And Logano was obviously being aggressive, and he's around Chastain, and they both kind of agreed that they were both just trying to get into that spot that they both were fighting for. And unfortunately, Chastain ended up getting turned around in a massive accident, huge accident. Cindric got up in the air, actually. Alfredo caught a little bit of air too. So thankfully, both those guys are all right. And then obviously Logano wrecked later on another restart and took out the rest of the Penske fold. I don't think the tires really obviously are a factor of those, but what I would say is that, with the softer tires, and we're just Goodyear pushing the pressures, obviously, and teams pushing the pressures, obviously when these tires blow, they do create chaos. I remember Noah Gragson's brake rotors exploded. His brake rotor was all over the track, and he had multiple cars ended up getting tires popped because they ran him over. I remember that. And obviously, I remember Chase Briscoe was running really well. Dude can't catch a break. He's one of those drivers that's obviously deep in a hole, and he just ended up popping a tire and blew out and hit the wall. So, I mean, I like what Goodyear's been trying to do, obviously, because, they are kind of in a box, because NASCAR doesn't want to throw out the big, massive changes to the car, at least right now. And, I like the added horsepower. I wish that we had more, but I like the added horsepower. And I also like what Hamlin mentioned earlier on Actions Detrimental about how this could be a foreshadowing for what happens at Darlington, which is not this week, but next week. He said there's going to be 4 seconds of tire fall off, and Darlington could be really great to watch, because Darlington is obviously already known for shredding tires. So definitely all around, I think it's a good thing for Goodyear to be pushing these tires the way they are. And also, I just feel like, it's not I don't think it's the end all be all, but I mean, if this is the way it's going to be, especially with the added horsepower, maybe you could add more horsepower and we can see even more chaos happen. So I'm all for it. I think it was a good change all around.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it. And to add on to the Blaney thing there, he had a lot of pressure on him to win this race because Penske swept the weekend with IndyCar and Blaney this weekend, which was really cool to see. Yeah, Zachary, the added horsepower, the tire fall off, I think that's kind of going more in the right direction there. And if it wasn't for the accidents and stuff, you could almost have this as a squashed race. I mean, if you put out a poll and you checked it, that's kind of what kept the action going. And you got to give kudos to Logano for that. I mean, he caused half the wrecks, but yeah, at the end of the day, Penske coming up with the win. I really don't have much more to add to this topic, but yeah, go ahead.
Two other things like I've noticed, like 2 races already this season, SVG spun out twice and he still finished in the top 10. And he's much better on ovals. And he's right now, was he like 5th in points or something like that? He's top 6. Like he's doing great. How long that will last, I don't know, but pretty cool to see. Briscoe, one of my favorite drivers, he unfortunately had blown a tire and hit the wall. He blew a tire multiple times last in the last few Phoenix races. He's had tire problems for whatever reason. And as Zach was mentioning, Darlington's coming up. I'm looking forward to going there. That's my next NASCAR event as a photographer. I'm going to that one, and this will be my 4th year in a row doing the Goodyear 400. So looking forward to that. I don't know if y'all saw it, but did y'all see the Carson Host paint scheme leak that came out for Darlington? That was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that leak is people have some things to say about that one. It's people are already like, I mean, obviously Dale Jr. has said, I mean, it's like, yeah, he reminds me of his dad. And so having a paint scheme like that, and it's the Wrangler throwback is what he's got. I want to say it's when he drove the 15, that kind of style paint scheme. I forgot the year and the team. I forgot who that was, but yeah, that's the style it reminds me of. But yeah, it's cool to see. But I got one last question for you guys. Do you about Phoenix? Maybe we don't know too much, but do you think that Chevy is in trouble with the new body and everything that they changed about their car? Do you think they're in trouble? Like we watched this race, a Chevy only led 1 lap. Now they have struggled in the past at Phoenix. Like it's known that they've struggled in the past. Yeah, sure, Kyle Larson has won the championship here last year, but he won it from 4th place after a green overtime restart, getting 2 tires, got track position, was able to get 4th place and secure the championship. But without that, he was no higher than around like 8th place. Now that's good, but again, Toyota and Ford, at least currently, they look head and shoulders above them. Thoughts, guys?
To have. I'm still hesitant on what Ford can do. We had a conversation last week as a group when the camera stopped rolling, when we stopped recording. We were actually a little critical on Ford. But Ford did impress over at Phoenix. But on the other hand, this is definitely one of their better tracks. Even last year, I think Ford as a whole definitely had a terrible season. If you look at their season as a whole, and they were still good at Phoenix. I'm not too worried about Chevy right now. I think the body is still kind of similar to what they are used to. Obviously, yes, there are some differences, but I don't think this is as big as an issue as it was when they went from the Impala over to the Camaro for the first time. If you remember way back in 2018, sorry for the cough, I'm still dying. Way back in 2018, Chevy struggled out the gate. Austin Dillon won the Daytona 500 in 2018, and Chevy did not win another race until Chase Elliott at Watkins Glen later in that year. It was that bad for Chevy. I don't think it's at this level, but right now, if I'm Chevy, I'm more worried about Toyota. Toyota has been the class of the field for both for all three manufacturers right now. So I think it's just growing pains into the year. I think they'll be fine. Like we said, too, after Phoenix, kind of will gauge where everyone is at, kind of, and Las Vegas is going to be similar to that. We'll be able to properly gauge how good everyone is and what everyone can do. And yeah, I'm just not worried personally about Chevy.
I agree.
So I actually in our group chat on Snap, I was talking about how I thought that Chevy seemed to be struggling a little bit more than I thought they would be. Now I know everyone has been saying how I'm not really worried about it until like Rizzo even said like after Las Vegas is really when you could think if they're going to be, on the struggle bus a little more, because typically in Las Vegas, Kyle Larson's obviously one of the bigger dominant drivers there. And if he goes out there and does the same old thing, then I think there's nothing to worry about. But if he does tend to not lead many laps and is struggling to even maintain in the top five, I think it is a little time to worry because you got to think with the new additional points format where there's more points based than obviously winning in. I don't think they can afford to be slipping up many more times, because you can't really wait until the Coca-Cola 600 because that's already, I think 11 races already into the season or something like that. So it is definitely time for Chevy to get it in high gear. I mean, we all made the joke about how like the new body looks like the same old body and there's nothing changed here. There were some changes involved, so some different aerodynamics probably at play here. And, because of that, I am a little worried about Chevrolet, believe it or not. Now I'm not in full panic mode yet, but if it sooner rather than later they need to start showing improvements, especially in a new format where it doesn't take lightly on slip ups.
Yeah, I don't think that Chevy's in trouble as a whole. I think they'll kind of pull it back and be fine towards the middle of the year. I think really everybody needs to be on the lookout. That 2311 bunch is still firing off strong. And you sit here, yeah, Blaney's second in points now, but I really think that this is the year of some new contenders. I do think we're going to see a big power hitter that doesn't make the playoffs. I think they're going to dig themselves into a big hole. But Chevy as a whole, I do think they're going to be fine come mid-season. So I don't think that we need to worry too much at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I just posed the question just because the stats say, hey, hold on, wait a second. Let's take a look at this. And plus the fact that they only led one lap last week, kind of shocking. Now, I could be way off on them even struggling because they could come out in 2 days here, a couple days here, and go win Las Vegas, dominate it completely. They haven't done that in a while, though. So I'll be interested to see. This is, I think, the real first test is this weekend at Las Vegas. But anyway, we'll see when it comes to Las Vegas. Let's move on to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. From the back to the front, Justin Allgaier got the win. He didn't lead until the last couple laps of this race. If you know Justin Allgaier, you know that this is probably his best track on the circuit. and he had a I think they had some pre-race inspection issue, or they had to change something. Started at the tail of the field. He took all race, worked himself all the way back up to the front, and when cautions were happening and things were happening up front, he made it, and he ended up getting the win. Thoughts on this race and thoughts on Justin Allgaier getting the win?
Grateful Allgaier. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of forgot about the race. Great win for Allgaier. Of course, championship caliber driver. We complain that Chevys might not be in the best situation right now. At least they're not a Ford situation in the O'Reilly series. Almost said it, but I got it. Yeah, Chevy killing it in the O'Reilly series still. Great win for Allgaier. Obviously, this is the best track. And just it kind of just proves his case even more, like why Allgaier is a championship threat year in, year out, every single year, no matter what. Even when Connor Zillage is dominating, you can still be like, Allgaier might sneak in there. So, yep, just an Xfinity regular whooping the field like he should be doing.
Yeah, going into it, I expected JRM to be really strong. I expected Jesse Love in particular to also be really strong, and that showed out. In that first stage, Jesse Love led majority of all the laps, and then Sammy Smith's car came on strong. He passed him at the end, got the stage win. Love reclaimed the top spot and led all the way to the stage 2. And then stage 3 got absolutely wild with a bunch of strategies thrown in there. He had Carson Qualfol that was climbing through. Looked like he was in prime position to snap his first career win. And all of a sudden, here comes the Grizzly veteran, Allgaier. Yeah, typically it wasn't an Allgaier performance that I was accustomed to seeing because, again, you said it, Rizzo, that this is one of his better tracks. And I expected him to lead more laps, and that just wasn't the case. Now, he didn't have the track condition, I feel like, to really show it because he was, again, starting out in the back. And then he made his way all the way up to the top 5 at the end, even before stage 1 ended. But then he kind of just hung around like 4th to 6th all night long. And then his crew ended up having a very slow stop, put him back in 20th place. He had a drive through, and then that late caution comes out. He starts around 6th, gets a great start on the outside, and ends up getting all the way up to 3rd place and then 2nd, and then eventually around Jesse Love, and he held him off from there. So, good for Allgaier. He's made it, like, how the old saying was, make a name for yourself. He definitely is making a name for himself in the history books. He has 29 career O'Reilly. I guess he actually has 29 nationwide O'Reilly and Xfinity Series wins because he won in all 3 of those series, technically, when they were named that. So he's very close to passing Sam Ard. He had 31 total victories in that series. So another milestone that he's just looking to chase, and he did a good job, obviously, rallying. His whole team did a good job rallying, staying in it. And, just another classic case of why, he is one of the championship favorites at the end of the year.
Yeah, you guys said it. I mean, this is one of his better tracks, and you expect JRM to be up front week in and week out. One of their drivers is going to be up front. I do expect this from Allgaier. And for him to be able to use that veteran status and be able to fight his way back up to the front, it's who he is. And for us to sit here and say it, he's definitely the championship front runner and probably will be all year. It's just knowing whether or not he can close the deal. And I think after he won that first championship there, he's become more confident in himself, more confident in his driving, and now he's able to say, I can do this. He's getting opportunities, and I'm sure that we'll get to that news here in a little bit. But, yeah, great win for Allgaier and JRM.
Yeah, great win for Allgaier. Great week for JRM. They were in it there late for all their cars, really. But yeah, Justin Allgaier, he's dominant at this track. You kind of expect it going in. That Justin Allgaier, he's either going to win it or something crazy is going to happen where he doesn't win it. So let's move on and talk Jesse Love. He was dominating this race. He led a whole lot. He had a huge lead. And then his car just slowly got away and away from him. It slowly just kept getting away. He was kind of behind in adjustments. And when all the cautions there late started happening, he lost any chance of getting the win. And fell right into Justin Allgaier's hands. Thoughts on Jesse Love's race, his run, and what do you think of Jesse Love so far this season? Is he still that championship threat that we saw last year, him winning the championship?
Kind of shows you the difference between the two drivers. You got Jesse Love, who, he is kind of more of an established veteran, but he's still a younger driver. He's still learning. And then you got Justin Allgaier, who is a veteran, who took care of his equipment. Jesse Love seemed to just used up his stuff, and Allgaier kind of swooped in to take it from there. I know he hasn't had the best start to the season. I still consider Jesse Love a championship caliber driver. I think, I know I just said that. I think Allgaier is the probably championship favorite. Jesse Love is probably second in my books. Actually, he is currently second in points, just 3 points behind Allgaier right now. I think it's going to be between those two. Maybe Austin Hill, if he decides to stop being an idiot, can go up there and surprise some people and compete for a championship. But to me, yeah, Jesse Love is still a championship caliber driver, and I'm excited to see what him and Allgaier can do this season, throughout the entire season with the points mattering. Gotta love now that the chase is here, that we can talk about points the entire season, that we can have a championship battle between two drivers and just watch them duke it out all the way through.
Yeah, when he won the championship at Phoenix last year, people were really upset, but they weren't upset at him. They were upset at the format that we were racing under. Obviously, that was one race finale where, the highest finisher obviously just ends up winning, and he just happened to be that after what happened with Connor Zillage that entire year and last year, where he obviously won 11 races and just absolutely put on a show and didn't end up winning the title, and that put a lot of sour grapes in everyone's mouth. But what this performance shows is that he is very good at Phoenix, okay? But his car wasn't obviously as good as it was early in the race. Especially, he didn't fire off, it seemed, as well, because when stage 1 and stage 2, both times, he just drove away from the whole field really early on, and then he had no challenge. But more cautions, obviously added more laps on your tires. You don't know how it's going to cycle through. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When your tires don't go, and unfortunately, I don't feel like he made a mistake. I don't think he got loose or anything. It's just that Allgaier's car fired off better, and he had the clean air, and because of that, he was able to obviously be the veteran that he is, which is obviously take care of his stuff enough to where he'd have to bobble, and he didn't bobble one bit. So I don't think Love's going to be hard on himself because he was so close to obviously that win. And as a racer, he's going to be obviously really hard on that because, again, second sucks. Second is first losers, as what the racing saying goes. But he's still a quality driver. I think if Kyle Busch leaves RCR, I feel like he's the first guy they're going to call to try and put in one of their cars in Cup. Even there's been rumors that Legacy Motor Club is trying to get him for one of their third car in 2027. So obviously these teams see something in him. And, what he's showing in the Xfinity Series is that he is a very obviously capable, quality driver. He's not the most flashiest guy, but he does get results, and he's doing a good job. So, stay in the battle long enough, and you'll find good opportunities. I think a good opportunity is going to be coming his way before too long.
Yeah, good things said about Jesse Love. He's a great racer. He's a great driver. I think last year, obviously, he won the championship in the way that it was formatted. He wanted the format that they signed up at the beginning of the year. Sure, maybe not the champion we wanted, but he did what was right. And I think he's a great driver. And I think this year he's going to be in it until the very last race. He's very consistent. He's finally showing speed at other tracks where he didn't show that speed at that winning speed at. And I think he's getting better. And there's a reason why, like you said, Cup teams are asking about him, trying to get him in their seat. But let's move on and talk about the Cup Series points like we do every week. This week after week 4, Tyler Reddick is still your points leader at 225. Moving up to second, you have Ryan Blaney at 165, 10 points. Reddick lost 10-point lead there, so now a 60-point lead. Bubba Wallace third, Chase Elliott in fourth, SVG in fifth. In sixth, we have Christopher Bell. Seventh, Joey Logano. Eighth, Michael McDowell. Ninth, Chris Buescher. 10th, Kyle Larson. 11th, William Byron. 12th, Denny Hamlin. 13th, AJ Allmendinger. 14th, Carson Hocevar. 15th, Ty Gibbs. And your last car currently in, if the chase were to start today, is Brad Keselowski. Guys, looking at the point standings, what are some things that pop out to you here?
The first thing I want to talk about is actually a driver that kind of went under the radar. I'm going with Joey Logano being 7th in points right now. It's no secret his last few seasons have been terrible, and he kind of won the championship on some bullshit. But he's definitely turned it up this year. He got a lot of heat for his racing the past 2 seasons. 15th place average finish last year, 17th place average finish the year before. He was kind of seen to start being a 20th to 15th place driver. And then they announced that the playoff system is no longer a thing and that the chase is happening. And I feel like a lot of people started picking Joey Logano to possibly miss out on the chase just for how he's been driving the last few seasons. But to start the year, he has definitely proved the haters wrong. And is currently 7th right now. So, yeah, just overall a good run for him. Obviously, we know he has speed. He's a veteran. He is, no matter how we spin it, yes, he is still a champion. And yeah, he's going to be tough to beat for sure. And I can see him honestly staying in that range. I can see him staying up there the entire season and possibly being higher in the standings.
All right. First thing I want to get out right away. Chase Elliott. I know it's not that big of a deal. You know, you see it. He's in 4th. You know, that's obviously a good spot because the 16 drivers make the field. But that team as a whole, man, if you want to be a championship threat and you want to be a championship contender and you want to be taken seriously, you got to put up better performances than what they did at Phoenix. I mean, they were out there in 20th. He ended up spinning on a restart, got damaged, never really recovered from that. Got really barely any, if at all, any stage points. And, you know, you see a guy like Blaney, and he's up front, and he's gaining a bunch of points, and he climbed all the way up to 2nd spot. I mean, if you want to be taken seriously, you got to put up better performances than that. The next guy I don't want to mention in a good way, Michael McDowell, similar to Allgaier, in which case he's been stuck in around the Cup Series for so long. We now don't think of him as being that guy that, well, maybe some do still, but he used to be known as the guy that had that massive accident at Texas in qualifying, survived it, one of the biggest, you know, crashes in the COT era to start it off. He's obviously now a Daytona 500 champion. He won another race at the Indy Road Course. And here he is with Spire. He's in a good car, and he's 8th spot. And he's actually the best Spire car at this moment in the points. So props to him for hanging in there. Kyle Larson made up spots. William Byron made up spots. One of the guys that unfortunately was looking like he was going to, and then he caught another unfortunate break all the way down in 33rd, Chase Briscoe. I mean, he had a career year last year, 3 wins, close to 20 top 10s on the year. People thought that he'd be a serious threat, you know, if they can continue the momentum from last year into this year. And they've had speed. It's not like they haven't had speed, but he's caught on some unfortunate breaks, got caught up in a couple of accidents at Atlanta and Daytona. And obviously here at Phoenix, again, he was running 3rd, and then his tire pops and he goes in the wall. Even at Coda, that he had a mechanical failure and it broke the tire rod in his car. So he's been putting himself in good position, but the breaks aren't falling his way right now, but obviously still plenty of time to make it up. If that team can continue to get better finishes and obviously get a ton of stage points, then he'll be making up many spots. Again, there's not many points to separate even from 10th to 33rd. It's like less than, I feel like, 30 points. So he can definitely make it up. A guy that I'm looking at that's had a couple good runs, obviously recently, Ty Gibbs. He's now finally in the playoffs. Now he's only 15th, and he's got to continue to do it. But I just got to highlight him real quick. Again, the Chris Gabehart JGR lawsuit is painting him in a not so pretty picture. Obviously, he's made it seem like he has different expectations from the whole team as a whole. And, he's done the last 2 weeks, he's done nothing but do his job, and he's finished top 5 at Coda and at Phoenix. So, I think that obviously a good thing to get his mind right and everything. And, yeah, as a whole, it's kind of just what's been happening. The trends show you, shall say, the top guys will eventually form to the top because as soon as they obviously get more comfortable with this points format, you're going to start getting, obviously, the guys that, should be up there, up towards the front.
Yeah, I mean, SVG sitting at 5 is still my shocker through 4 weeks. You've had 2 drafting tracks, you've had the 1 road course, and now we've went to Phoenix. And he's been able to kind of maintain that top 5, top 10 position. I think that's probably the most shocking thing for this year thus far. Outside of what 2311's done. I know I keep saying that, but that is the biggest shocker. AJ Allmendinger sitting down there in 13th for me. That's a big turnaround. We know AJ's capable of stringing some runs together, especially road courses. He's usually up front for those. But what AJ's been able to do through the first 4 weeks, if he can kind of maintain that and get on a run, he's a guy that can sit there at that number 16 spot to get into the chase later in the year. But you have some big names still outside of the top 16. And, it's shocking to me to sit here and say that Briscoe's 33rd after the season that he had last year. That shocks me. They're going to have to turn it around. He's 178 points back, and that's a team that I felt like would be floating around that borderline mark thus far through the season, but they're going to have to pull it together and kind of start clawing their way out of a hole. But, I mean, to me, those are the big ones. Zachary, you mentioned Ty Gibbs. He's actually having a good start to a season for himself. So we'll see. We're still really early, and we got a lot of racing to go.
Yeah, still early in the season, but I love this format to actually look at the points this early in the season and actually get to, see how things will roll out the rest of the year. Michael, you took the one I was going to say here in SVG. Him being 5th is kind of crazy. What's even crazier is that he spun twice last week and still finished, I think, 13th. He still had a great day. He had a great car, and that's the second race this year where he spun out twice, and then still had a great finish. He did it at 11th. He finished 11th this week, yeah. But he's a wheelman. He's really good, and we see how good he is at road courses, and how the other drivers say what he's got is crazy. Like he does. But his actual skill is just ridiculous. If he could translate that to the ovals, now I'm not saying he's going to do it within 2 years, right? But this being his second year in the Cup Series. But look out. I'm the only one out of the 4 of us that had him going into the chase this year. I do want to know. But I will say we are going to go into some, quote, real tracks here this upcoming events here. The next run of tracks here are all ovals or short tracks, so that will really get to test where he's at in the standings. But yeah, you guys also mentioned Chase Briscoe. He finished 2nd at Atlanta, and then every other track we've been to, he's just had issues that were none of his own. And I think if he was actually able to finish these races, he'd be in the opposite end. opposite end of the point standings. I really think he'd be a top 3, top 4, top 5 guy in the point standings if it wasn't for all the issues that he's having. I think once he gets consistency, once they're able to finish these races, it'll be no time before he gets up there. I think he can get in the chase. Sure, he's 178 points from the lead, but if you look at it, he's like, 70 points from the cutoff? He can make that up in 23 races. He can make that up. Zachary, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, it wasn't about Briscoe. It was actually about another guy I forgot to mention real quick. We crap on him a lot compared to what his teammates have been doing, obviously, with winning races, especially Ryan Blaney winning races. But Austin Cindric, he actually has been putting together some solid races, but he hasn't been getting – it's like the same thing with Briscoe. He hasn't been getting the finishes. We thought that stage racing would be a big factor in this, and it is. It definitely is. He's been getting a lot of stage points. So because of that, his buffer isn't quite as big, but you need to put together good finishes. So if he's going to be able to make the playoffs and make the chase, then he's going to have to stop, obviously wrecking out in these events. Again, sometimes you make your own luck. He's been caught up in the pack of some of these wrecks. So again, get yourself more towards the front and stay up there, because that way you can get stage points and be out of the mess, so you eventually get good finishes.
Yeah, guys like them, they've already used up their mulligans. They can't have any other really bad days if they want to make it to the chase and even have a chance at the championship. Now, a lot of people have said when NASCAR did a lot of testing on this new point system, they said the majority of the time, like 70% of the time, the winner of the championship came from the top 3. And there was no winners beyond 6th place. So you got to be in the top 3 to have a good shot. And if you really want a shot at all, maybe get in the top 6. And a guy like Chase Briscoe, he's got a lot to catch up. Let's move on to news around the garage. We only have one story for you guys here, and that being Alex Bowman is missing yet another race here at Las Vegas. Justin Allgaier will fill in for him in the 48 this time around. Thoughts on this one, guys? Zachary, I know your brother's a huge fan of Alex Bowman. He's probably he's got Tyler Reddick, and then he's got Alex Bowman way down here. So thoughts on this one?
Okay, I'll start. Zachary took too long. Anyways, it does suck that Bowman is obviously out due to an illness. He has been out for other reasons, such as back issue, such as a concussion. And not to mention, I believe this is a contract year for him too. And Hendrick, yeah. And Bowman's always been one of those drivers that's in a weird position with Hendrick. He is the 4th driver. Don't really expect a championship out of him, but we expect race wins. We expect him to make the chase. Statistically, if you look at his stats compared to other Hendrick 4th place drivers, he is actually one of the better 4th Hendrick drivers Hendrick has ever had. But being the 4th Hendrick driver and running 15th to 10th every week doesn't really do it for Hendrick. Obviously, William Byron, Kyle Larson are championship contenders. Chase Elliott can throw together some wins and a good season every now and then. You don't really see that with Bowman. He does get wins, but he kind of gets some fluky wins in there every now and then. I still think he's a good driver. I still think he definitely has some talent. But right now, we're a month into the season, and Bowman is nowhere close. We were talking about Chase Briscoe being 30th in points right now. Alex Bowman is in a much worse situation right now. He is 36th in points, minus 202 points, and it's only going to get worse. He is not coming back till April, so he is going to miss Las Vegas. He's going to miss Darlington. He's going to miss Martinsville. So the Bowman situation is very dire, not with it being a contract year as well.
Okay. I think he has like 14 more points than Casey Mears. I mentioned that last week, and Casey Mears has only driven one race. He drove the Daytona 500, and that was it. Talk about something that he just could not afford to have happen. I mean, we all know that he was obviously the one guy that is in trouble of losing his ride at Hendrick is going to be the guy in the 48. It's Alex Bowman. And, I've been mentioning about trends in this show. There's another trend that has followed Hendrick throughout his entire history, and that's drivers getting hurt. And usually it's like one of the weaker guys that ends up getting injured. And so it happened to Dale Jr. Casey Kane had issues with his like body temperature and dehydration and stuff, and he had to retire early. He had other guys like Ricky Craven drive their cars, and he ended up getting injured. And unfortunately with Bowman, 2022, he has the concussion. He misses 5 races. 2023, of his own doing, drives a sprint car, flips it, and breaks his back, misses 3 races. Seemed like he was back to his usual ways in 2024. 2024 was actually one of his better years career-wise in top 10s, and he ended up winning a race. But then 2025, he goes winless again. He makes the playoffs, but he goes out in the first round. And this year was supposed to be a year where he was going to was hoping to hopefully to get bounced back to, maybe a multi-win season, maybe obviously back to what he did in 2024, which is around like 18 career top 10s, which would be the most that he's ever had in one year. But unfortunately, what's happened is nothing but wrecks and obviously missing races. So it's unfortunate, sometimes it's the hand that we're dealt. I mean, he can't afford to miss. Like, he couldn't even afford to miss these 2 races. The fact that he can miss a third means that he's probably not going to make the playoffs because he would dig himself such a big hole. And then, like Hamlin talked about it, he'd have to be running better than what he usually does. And unfortunately, he's not this bum driver, okay, that some of these fans think he is. But he's not some elite driver either. So I don't expect him to come out and obviously be challenging for wins. What I would hope for is that he'd be healthy and, just preparing for whatever opportunity that comes his way next. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's at Hendrick or if it's still in the Cup Series or whatnot, but the main priority here is his health. So I hope that he obviously gets healthy and returns to the track sooner than later.
Yeah, I really hate this for Bowman. I agree. He couldn't afford to miss these couple of races, and he was possibly on his way out at Hendricks anyways. But I don't want to say this, but this could buy him another year. I mean, it's something that I don't want to sit here and put out there and say necessarily, but it could have bought him another year to be able to show what he's able to do. As far as Allgaier going into this ride, I think we're going to see Allgaier kind of prevail here a little bit. I think we're going to see him come out and run pretty solid here. He's had a few starts in the new gen car, and I actually thought Alfredo stepping in this past weekend done a really good job in the 48 car until he got hung up into the wreck. He was actually doing pretty solid. Yeah. But I think that this is possibly a position that I don't want to say that we see Allgaier move up. I don't think he's ever going to do that full time, and if he did, it would be for Junior Motorsports. But I think he's very deserving of this position, and we'll see what happens. But hope that Bowman gets better, and we'll see him soon.
Yeah, obviously the hope is that Bowman gets better, but it's a good opportunity for Justin Allgaier. He won last week, gets to step in a Hendrick car, one of the best cars in the garage. I just hope it goes better for him than it did at Daytona not too long ago. So let's move on to the award ceremony. First up, top shelf, I'll go first, and I will give it to Ty Gibbs. With all the news going on, all the outside noise, talking about how he doesn't show up to meetings, he's a bad guy, all this and that. He's shutting everybody up. He's had some great performances these last couple of weeks, and he goes to a track at Las Vegas where Gibbs, JGR, has done fantastic at in the last couple of years here. So he's running a hot streak. Maybe he can continue it. But right now, my top shelf of the week will be Ty Gibbs.
My turn now. My top shelf, I'm actually going to give this one to Roger Penske. Simply won the IndyCar race, won the NASCAR Cup race. Thank goodness Blaney did win because he kind of had a lot of torn up race cars, but he's probably more happy that Blaney won more than anything else, and that IndyCar was able to get the job done as well. Good day all around for Ford, and really, like, I harp on the fact that the other cars got into a wreck. They were having a good day as well. Logano was up front. Cindric was up front at times. He was having one of his better races. Barry was up front. Yeah, Barry led a few laps. And so really, it was actually a really good day for Penske. Just didn't quite have the results to show for it for the other three guys, but finished first place, and that's really all that matters.
For me, I'm gonna look at the guy that we highlighted in the points segment, Shane Van Gisbergen. We already know that we all know that he's a world-class talent on road courses, but people coming into the year, there was less road courses on the schedule. There's only 4 on the schedule. There's no more winning in. So while he could still be very good, obviously, and dominate those road courses and get max points, he still can't be obviously very slow on these ovals. And we've driven 4 races so far, and we've had 3 ovals so far, 2 super speedways, which, as a bunch of wild cards, you can get caught up in a wreck when you're up front or anywhere. And, what's happened is that he's made mistakes, surely. He's spun out multiple times at Atlanta, this past weekend at Phoenix. But he's persevered and held off the bad luck enough to where he's gotten some solid finishes. And because of that, he's not in a position like a Chase Briscoe, like a Austin Cindric. He's 5th in points. And, it was coming in like later in like the playoffs last year. He was doing better on the ovals, and coming into this year, he's doing the same thing. He's just surviving, finishing top 15. He's doing what he needs to do. So tip of the hat to Shane Van Gisbergen for holding steady in fifth place in points and also getting some solid finishes.
I'm going to say 2 things that we don't say often for the top shelf. NASCAR and Goodyear. More horsepower and the tire wear. They were actually able to put a solid race together at Phoenix with those 2 things. And that is something that we haven't seen in a very long time, if ever, at Phoenix. I'm not saying it was a great race. It was a solid race, and that's better than what Phoenix has put on in the past. I'm giving it to Goodyear and NASCAR here for being able to put a package together that works.
Yeah, it's hard to make Phoenix look good, and they did a good job. Some great picks, guys. Now let's move on to hangover of the weeks. For me, I'm gonna have to give it to Chase Briscoe. Like I said, he's had some great cars, but he cannot finish a race to save his life. I picked him too, so maybe I should get the hangover as well. So yeah, he finished dead last. Give me Chase Briscoe.
For me, it's a tough one, obviously. I'm not stuttering because Rizzo 100% just picked my hangover of the week or anything like that. So I'm going to go with these 3 bozos, all right, just simply because the fact that they all picked home run hitters, and I picked Riley Herbst, and Riley Herbst ended up doing well. So, yeah. I made Riley Herbst useful to me. How about that?
If Chase Briscoe finished the race, you'd still finish last. Okay, I'm just.
But I did it. But I did it. But I did it. But I did it.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say I used a heavy hitter. I used Kyle Busch. He's 40 years old now. Come on. For me, I mean, there's two ways I can go with this, and they're both completely different. So what I'm going to do is, because they costed Bell to win, I'm going to say JGR strategist. 2 times now we've been to Phoenix the last 2 times. JGR has had the dominant car 2 times. 2 times they lost out to Ryan Blaney, winning the race, and they ended up winning the championship with Hamlin, ended up losing it to Kyle Larson. Here at Phoenix this past weekend, Bell had the dominant car. He was out front leading. He was doing a good job holding off Blaney, believe it or not, when Blaney first got to him. You know, doing a good job at mirror driving a little bit. But his team, his crew chief, called for 4 tires, losing the track position the same way it happened with Hamlin in the championship race. And lo and behold, he could not get up front enough. He couldn't get to the lead quick enough, and he ended up losing the race. So, JGR strategist, at least around Phoenix, please, when you're in the lead, take like 2 tires or just stay out and keep the clean air, because, I mean, 2 times now you've ended up costing your drivers a chance to win.
Well, on the hangover of the week, I'm going with a name that is very well known for the hangover of the week, and that's Fox. You're promoting the new chase, and you can't even show the point system at the end of the race. And then at the bottom of the screen, after people has made it very well known, you still cannot get the manufacturers and the drivers right. I think they had like 3 Toyotas and a Ford. No shit. It was bad. And I can even get over that. But when the race is over, before you go off the air, if you're going to promote the chase, show the dadgum points. That's something that we want to know. The race is over. Where is my driver at live? Because it may take, you know, the NASCAR app or whatever, another 2 hours to update right. Do it live. Put it on the screen. Let that be your closing segment. Come on, Fox.
Yeah, it would be nice to get the points. I will say that. I always look. I mean, I go straight to NASCAR.com and look at the point standings after every race so far this year. So if they were able to do that for us, that'd be great. Some great picks, guys. Now let's move on to our favorite part of the show: picks and expectations for next week. So last week, how we finished was I finished last. I had Chase Briscoe. He finished 37th. Aiden, you finished 3rd with Riley Herbst at 18th. Like I said, Chase Briscoe would have finished better than 18th. But anyway, Zach, you had Kyle Busch finishing 17th, and then Michael, you won the weekend. You finally did not finish last, and you got a win. You had Kyle Larson. He finished 3rd. So I'll start off the picks. Give me. I kind of alluded to my pick here. Give me Ty Gibbs. I think he continues the hot streak. JGR is really good at this track. Yeah, give me Ty Gibbs. Zachary, Aiden, who you got?
About to say wrong dude. You know, I have picked some bums. I'm gonna be real. The guys I have picked are bums. All right. I picked Ty Dillon one week. Why did I do that? Because it was Atlanta. I have picked some bums. So I'm going with William Byron this week.
All right. I think it's time for me to pull out one of my top heavy hitters, because I haven't done so far this year. He is really good here, and he actually, he might be struggling a little bit in terms of just maybe raw pace. No, he's not. He finished 2nd. He could have won last week. Give me Christopher Bell at Las Vegas. Give me Bell.
I'm going to pull a mulligan here. Give me Justin Allgaier in the 48 car this weekend at Vegas. I think he goes out and has a solid performance. I don't know that we see him too many times this season. I could be pulling that card early, but this will give me a mulligan over somebody I had to take late that I really don't want to. So give me Allgaier.
I like the picks, guys. I wish I would have known you guys all would have went shooting for big guys here, but I wouldn't have gone Ty Gibbs. But I guess it could work out. But anyway, let's go to expectations for Las Vegas. I'll go first. I'm expecting a pretty good race. This put on some good shows last year. The first race here, there was a lot of wrecks, and it led to Josh Berry getting the win. And then the last one in the fall race, obviously Denny Hamlin getting his 60th win, a very emotional win for him. That was a great race to the finish between him and his teammate Chase Briscoe, who could get into the championship four. It was a great race, and I think we're going to get another good race. It's going to be the first race that we get to test who's good and who's not. We have the points where they're at, and we've said some guys who we think are going to be good and who's not. This is where we're going to see, can they live up to where they are at the point standings or not. Someone I'm looking at to keep an eye on is the College cars. They're currently pretty solid in the points, but they have no backing from Chevrolet. They're doing it all on their own. And I honestly think that College might find themselves way at the bottom after the stretch of races at the mile and a halves. This is where speed, aero, and engine package really matter. And we're going to test to see who's the best so far this season in 2026. Guys, what's your thoughts and expectations?
I've always been a fan of Las Vegas. It is definitely one of the tracks I definitely want to go to. No matter what, I always want. I'm always excited for a Las Vegas race, even though historically my favorite drivers have actually not ran well here. Actually, I shouldn't say ran well, more like have really bad luck here. Obviously, Blaney is always fast here, but whether he gets taken out in an accident or he has some pit call that takes him out from the lead and everyone else doesn't pit, that was back in 2020. Or when I'm a Tony Stewart fan and he gets a pit road penalty because his crew member threw a wrench. Not even kidding. That's how he lost the 2011 race at Las Vegas. Yeah, I always like Las Vegas. Like Rizzo said, it always has been like one of the first like main races of the season, like 3 to 6 races of the season. You can always tell after this race who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. And I think that'll be the same this year. We'll be able to tell who is good, who is not, who can back it up. So I'm excited for this weekend.
Yeah, Vegas is obviously a track that can put on a good show. It can produce some wacky winners. Saw that last year with Josh Berry, and he had Daniel Suarez ended up finishing second. That came out of nowhere. It can be, a stepping stone for you taking a step towards being a championship contender. Because if you run up front and do well here, you're basically going to do well on a lot of tracks. Because NASCAR is, again, a more traditional oval sport. It still has, I think, like 7 more traditional ovals, and most of those we go to multiple times, like here at Vegas. So it's a good opportunity for people to make up points if you're down and out. Like Chase Briscoe, for example, he definitely needs a good finish this weekend. He cannot afford to finish in the back end. But I am looking forward to it. It's not the greatest oval I feel like we have. So unfortunately for Las Vegas purposes, it falls behind Charlotte and Homestead and even Kansas at times as well. So it sets comfortably in like 4th, I think, for me, but it is a good track. I think it can produce good racing, obviously, and we're going to definitely see some heavy hitters duking it out for the win, I feel like, and maybe potentially even some strategy involved because this is Vegas. There's been known to be some gambling in Vegas, so maybe we'll see somebody gamble and we'll see if it bites them or not. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend for sure.
I really enjoy the Vegas race. I think it'll put on a solid performance this weekend. you know, that's a type of tracks really kind of perform for us in this generation car. So pretty excited about it. Can't wait to see what happens, and give me some Allgaier love this weekend.
Yeah, I like what you guys have to say about this track. This track is really good. They put on a great show. So yeah, but anyway, this is normally where we cut the show off and say goodbye, and we'll see you next week. But with us being live, we have an awesome new segment, and that's questions from the fans. We have some questions from us. My Bunny's got the question. Bunny, what are the questions we have today?
All right, so our first question comes from Kyle. He asked, will Kyle Busch win a race in 2026?
I'll start us off here. I would love to see it, just because, you know, he needs to. I mean, he was the face of the sport for so long. I would love to see it, but with RCR, I just don't think so. I really don't think so. If you listen to the radio communication between him and the whole team, you just look at how they are. They are down in the dumps, and I just don't see it happening. And I think he's out at RCR at the end of the year, and he finds a new ride. If not, if he retires.
My heart says yes. My head says no. Just simply because of the fact that, like Rizzo said, I do not trust RCR right now, unfortunately. It's sad, both this organization that was once great and this driver that was also once great kind of crumble, unfortunately. I just don't see the speed that RCR has right now. If Kyle can do it, it would be at a super speedway. He is good at super speedways, even though his stats may not say so. He is still very talented at drafting tracks. If he does win, it would have to be there. Unfortunately, I just don't see it happening anywhere else.
Some quick NASCAR lore. I was actually at the last race that Kyle Busch ended up winning. He was at Gateway in 2023. Same. I'm going with the same theme here. I just can't trust RCR. I mean, I picked him to run well at Phoenix, and they gave him a hydrogen bomb for a car. His front tire kept exploding. He ended up somehow in the top 10, and they pointed it out, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, if he gets some luck here, maybe he has a chance to win me the picks. But unfortunately, he fell back all the way back to 17th. So unfortunately, I can't trust RCR. And we sometimes, you live long enough to be a hero or a villain. We know how long Kyle Busch was a villain for NASCAR, and now fans want to see him actually end up winning a race before he ends up parting ways, or at least from the Cup Series side. He might go down to race trucks with his son Brexton. But unfortunately, I can't trust RCR to put out a car good enough to win. The only car they can is Austin Dillon. That's because one of his guys is from JGR, and they got the setup from Hamlin. So that's really it.
Yeah, I'm kind of going to keep the theme going. I don't think that Kyle will win off of the team, the performance. It's going to have to be a strategy race, that if he's going to pull one off this year, it's going to have to be based on fuel mileage, staying out. They're going to have to luck themselves into a win for them to pick up a win, because I do not like what they're doing at RCR. And I really hate that for Richard Childress Racing. The history that they've had with that organization, I really hate it. I was hoping that Kyle would be able to go there and maybe even do something to help build that. But since he's made that change, Reddick's left, that organization has just went downhill, and I don't see either one of those cars winning a race this year. Our final question comes from Dylan. I have a question for the end of the show. If you guys had to pick your top 3 biggest what ifs in NASCAR, it can be tracks, racers, teams, whatever, what would they be?
Oh, damn. That is a good one. That is a really good question. Oh, man. I'm going to need a minute here. If any of you guys have anything first.
I'm ready.
Yeah, you go for it.
I'll go. So one of my big what ifs is, what if Bristol did not do the repave? What if they would have kept the traditional layout? the banking the way it was at 36 degrees, what would we be seeing now? Because since they've changed that, the racing has went from horrible to decent to tire failure. What are we going to get this time? It's always a question mark anymore. And that's one of mine. Has it been drivers or is it the track? I think it's got a little bit to do with both, but that's one of my personal what ifs. My other one is, what if, and these are tragic, but there's big question marks around them. What if Adam Petty had not lost his life at New Hampshire in 2000? What would he have been able to do in that Petty organization? And the Petty organization is no more. It has turned into Legacy Motor Club. There was a lot of talk, a lot of high hopes for Adam Petty there. His life at 19 years old just ended really, really short. And I hated it. I remember that very, very well. And I guess my last one of the what ifs is another tragic. Alan Kwiecki at Bristol. He lost his life again very, very young. That's one of the things. What if they could do more? I guess is the question. And, for us, we don't know when our clock reaches zero, but make the most of it. So those are my three big what ifs from NASCAR.
For me, I mean, I feel like everyone's gonna go with like, what if Dale Earnhardt was still here? Like, what if that didn't never happen? I feel like that's the biggest one. But for me, it's like, what if NASCAR, prioritize safety sooner? Like, how many lives would it have saved? Where would the sport be? Like what happened there? But I guess my biggest one was, what if NASCAR just never did the Car of Tomorrow? Like, what if they just completely just didn't do that? Because it was like when the Car of Tomorrow happened and they brought in the chase and they did all this and that, and viewership went way down. And I would just, maybe take that away. Like maybe, maybe fans, there would be more fans. Not that there's not enough or anything like that, but like viewership was at an all-time high in 2006, 2005. That was when viewership was at an all-time high. And then something happened and everyone points to the Car of Tomorrow. Cars looked ugly as hell and they raced terrible. Even Kyle Busch said it. What did Kyle Busch say at the end of that Bristol race? He said something hilarious. It was a good line, but
You can't stand to drive these cars. They suck.
yeah. Yeah, I wish they just got rid of them. I wish that whole era wasn't a thing. I mean, it's what I grew up with, but I wish they didn't do that, I guess. I don't know. What do you guys have to say?
The first one for me, a lot of what ifs that I think about is mainly team based. And like my big one that I do think about a lot is, what if JGR didn't go to Toyota in 2008? What if for some reason they stuck with Chevy? And there's two big things about that. Number one, what would Toyota be? Because like now Toyota's flagship team is Joe Gibbs Racing, who would who would fill that role then? Like, who would be that drive? What team would be the Toyota team? Also, their rivalry with Hendrick Motorsports would have been interesting. Hendrick is obviously the flagship Chevy team now, but Joe Gibbs definitely would have had something to say about it if they stayed with Chevy. Another big thing that I bring that up is Tony Stewart. Tony made it very clear that one of the big reasons why he left Joe Gibbs Racing was simply because he didn't like the Toyotas. He hated how they drove. He just didn't really like the brand. And he started his own team at Stewart-Haas Racing and went back to Chevy. if Joe Gibbs Racing stays a Chevy team, there's a good chance Tony never leaves. So now Stuart Haas doesn't exist. So that means, what does Ryan Newman do after Penske? What does Kevin Harvick go after RCR? What happens to Kurt Busch after 2014? I'm sure those guys would have landed on their feet somewhere else. I feel like Harvick was leaving RCR no matter what. Kurt Busch someone was going to attack Kurt Busch eventually. What would have happened to Newman would have been interesting. I'm not sure where he would have went at the time. Danica Patrick wouldn't have existed, probably to the point where she does now. Not to mention, what happens to Joey Logano? Like, he was rushed into the Cup Series after Tony Stewart left because Joe Gibbs was honestly not expecting Tony Stewart to just leave. So would a fourth car be introduced? And would that mess up the timeline of him going to Penske? Just a lot of interesting what ifs if Joe Gibbs never switched over to Toyota. My next one, we were talking about tragedies earlier. What if Tim Richmond never passed away? Richmond was a phenomenal driver, was racing for Hendrick Motorsports, was NASCAR's bad boy, I guess I should say. He was everywhere, and unfortunately, he passed away due to AIDS that took his life way too soon. He was a championship caliber driver too, so I'm not sure what would have happened there. Obviously, he was Hendrick's guy for a while. Just really sad to think back to that and what Tim Richmond could have been for NASCAR in a short time here. In NASCAR, he made quite a bit of an impact. And this one's kind of more of a goofy one. What if Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison do not fight in the infield in the Daytona 500? Because that race is the reason why NASCAR is a thing. I swear up and down, if that race doesn't happen, NASCAR doesn't exist to this day. It made the sport incredibly popular. Everyone tuned in. It was the first broadcast race. And of course, there was an awesome fight, an awesome finish that made it even better. Like, it was a huge deal when that fight broke out. Think of like Ross Chastain's wall ride. Imagine if Ross Chastain did the wall ride in the first ever NASCAR broadcasted race. That's what it was like. That was the buzz around NASCAR after that fight happened. So what if they didn't fight? What if it was just a boring 500 and Petty just won it and nothing interesting happened?
Yeah, for me, that race did definitely make NASCAR more popular in the mainstream than what it was previously. For me, I wanted to go back to the very beginning. What if Bill France Sr. wasn't interested in racing? I mean, he was the guy behind it all, really. I mean, yeah, there were some other guys with him that was brainstorming how we could turn this into an actual series and whatnot, but he was the guy. He was the main guy that was pushing for a stock car racing series. And if he doesn't want to get involved in racing, then that completely derails at least part of the plan. Like, NASCAR's been around for 78 years, almost close to 80 years now. They just celebrated their 75th anniversary not too long ago. But you got to think, if he's not involved in the whole process of it, that definitely does, maybe hurt NASCAR. Maybe stock car racing doesn't get introduced in the late 1940s and early 50s. And that's next one I got. So I will also, like, this is another tragedy, and it's just something that everyone brings up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, is what if Dale Earnhardt survived the 2001 Daytona 500? I mean, I'm doing this for somewhat biased reasons because my favorite driver, and still to this day, is Dale Earnhardt Jr. He started his career at DEI, obviously, and, DEI was supposed to be a long-term plan of turning into a powerhouse, similar to what Hendrick Motorsports, a team like that, is today. So it was just They were just starting to get their groove. They finally had their driver lineup secure. They had Michael Waltrip. He won the 500 that year, obviously. He had Junior and he had Steve Park. And you had Dale Earnhardt's long-term vision. I know people bring up about maybe we were seeing more drivers die. I really don't want to focus on that. That's just too sad to think about. I instead wanted to think about DEI just being around to this day and still competing for championships and still competing for race wins. And not only that, you could have seen, sponsors like Napa not leave. You could have seen sponsors like Budweiser not leave. You could have seen other guys come up, not just Junior staying his whole career at DEI. You could have seen Martin Truex Jr. drive for DEI and stay. He still ended up doing so, but stay there his whole career. Brad Keselowski the same way. Junior founded him. I mean, you got to think there's a couple of drivers that their careers could have easily been affected if DEI was still around. And then the last one I got is, what if Jeff Bodine doesn't win at Martinsville in '85? Obviously, Jeff Bodine raced for Hendrick Motorsports, and when Hendrick Motorsports was the 40th anniversary was around, they just talked about how, he won that race, and that really catapulted them to what they are today. If he doesn't win that race, they technically were on the brink of folding, complete bankruptcy, and a top powerhouse team like Hendrick Motorsports is no longer around potentially, and that opens up obviously other opportunities for maybe some other owners to get involved, and we don't see the domination of Jeff Gordon. We don't see the domination of Jimmy Johnson. It's something to really think about. There's definitely many more what ifs you can think of than these, but those are the ones that I think of basically the most.
There's some good ones. That's some real good ones. I kind of thought of this one while you were talking about DEI. What if Dale Jr. won that championship in 2004? That was the closest he ever got to it. And then he just had some real bad races there to end the season and handed it to Jeff Gordon. I just think that's one of them where I'm just like,
the sport would have been saved. I'm like 100% convinced if Dale Jr. ever won a championship, the sport would have been saved.
Absolutely. What if he never got those concussions? If you now going back to it and you watch like replays of the accidents he got into, you're like, dang, like that I could see why he retired so soon. So. But yeah, that's a great question.
So right before you close the show here, couple of announcements. Excessive BS Local and Loud Monday at 7 o'clock. We will be live with Cletus T. Judd sitting down to do an interview. And on March 30th, we have an interview with Lena Lyons. That is a Milligan women's basketball player. This will be at the conclusion of the NAIA Women's Championship, so be glad to get her thoughts on that. They're making a run at the tournament. So those are our next couple of things we have lined up. Hopefully more coming down the pipe. So stay tuned.
Yeah, some awesome things getting announced here. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're listening to this a couple of days after, make sure you come back on Wednesdays. We'll be live talking all things NASCAR, and put your questions into the chat, whether that's TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube. We'll check, and at the end of the show, we'll answer your questions. Some great questions to end the show here today. But thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Michael Rizzo, joined by Bunny, Zachary Kendall, and Aiden Fortney. We'll see you guys next week and on all of our other shows through Depot Street Sports. See you guys next week, and we'll talk all things